Today I'll be giving you an example of, say, a Module 1 essay. This one is from the 2023 paper. No, this was about new studies saying that social media doesn't make us antisocial but rather hypersocial. So the question basically wanted us to state the writer's main message, right? And it said in approximately 30 words, identify the writer's purpose, discuss two organizational strategies or language techniques or a combination of both, which the author uses to achieve this purpose, comment on how the credibility of the information on the new claim could be enhanced. I identified a couple organizational strategies such as listing, use of expert opinion, comparison and contrast. I also looked at the overall text structure, which I found to be argumentative, but I didn't speak about that in the essay when I wrote it for the first draft, yeah. And for language techniques, I found first person point of view, anecdote, hyperphora, metaphors, and other emotive language. Ultimately, I chose to speak about comparison and contrast and the use of expert opinion together because I needed both for my argument basically. And I also paired language techniques. I used first person point of view and anecdotes. For the introduction, you can make that about 60 to 75 words. And this is how I started. So I said that the article, new study says social media doesn't I don't know why I always do this to myself. Antisocial, make us antisocial. Yeah, I'm going to speed this up so that you guys don't have to see me typing because, bro, my brain is lagging. Okay, that took way longer than I thought it would, but here I've basically tackled two parts of the question that you're given on the exam paper, which is the main idea and the purpose. I stated that the article, New Studies Say Social Media Doesn't Make Us Antisocial by Taylor Bennett presents the main idea that despite popular belief that excess social media use is a sign of antisocial behavior, that needs a U, boy, we use British English over here, studies have shown the opposite. Bennett's purpose is to persuade readers to rethink their views on the effects of excessive social media use and consider that it might instead be a sign of hypersocial behavior. Right. As you can see, I have used the elementary frame. Over the years doing this, I have been experimenting with different ways to do this because it gets quite boring over time to be starting your essays like the main idea of the article is blah blah blah. So I would recommend experimenting. So the main idea is that despite popular belief that excess social media use is a sign of antisocial behavior, studies have shown the opposite. That's the main point. The purpose is to persuade readers to rethink their views on the effects of excessive social media use and consider that it might instead be a sign of hypersocial behavior. Right? And this overall sums up what the article is about. I tried to make it that way. No, I also didn't go fancy with the purpose. I just said it's to persuade because after reading the article, that's what I got. That's just what I got. It's trying to persuade me of the argument. No, when you're going into talking about organizational strategies and the language techniques used, you're going to basically say what they are and tell how they're being used to help the writer, in this case Taylor Bennett, achieve her purpose of persuading you to rethink your views that the effects of excessive social media use is actually not causing us to be antisocial, but rather hypersocial. So again, I will spare you and just type this out. I could just copy and paste because I wrote this already. And so yeah, enjoy elevator music. Okay, so for the first body paragraph, as you can see, I just introduced the writer's organizational strategies, and signposting is something that I like to drill. Signposting is where you give your reader a little tag. Let's say tag. You tell them exactly what you're going to talk about now, right? So that we just know that you're changing subject, right? We're changing the topic. That's what we're doing, right? Not necessarily going away or straying from the topic, but we're not doing the introduction anymore. We're going to start talking about organizational strategies. And if you make this clear that you're about to start to talk about organizational strategies and identifying what they are, it makes it way easier for your marker to know whether them need to give the points or not. Okay, so the writer uses organizational strategies such as comparison and contrast and the use of expert opinion to achieve this purpose. Now, I told you that I used 2 organizational strategies because I needed one to explain the other, right? And how it's used as an organizational strategy. It's very important that you realize and remember that organizational strategies usually gives the text structure. It puts the writer's argument in a way that it is easy to follow the text, or that's how it should be, and it ensures that the text is coherent and cohesive, right? So after me, that's me signposting by literally saying the writer uses organizational strategies such as comparison and contrast and the use of expert opinion to achieve this purpose. It lets you know that I'll be talking about these organizational strategies. No. So then I'm going to go on to provide evidence of how this is used in the text. And here I haven't used any direct quotations from the text. Instead, I just explained how they're used and where we can find them. That's another way in which you can present evidence. A lot of people like to just literally put quotation marks and blah blah blah, and as seen in line 1, that's a way you can provide evidence, but you can also explain how something is used as your evidence. So I said that the author begins the discourse by introducing the audience to the idea that excessive social media use leads to antisocial behavior. Later, the author mentions the study conducted by McGill University that challenges this idea. So by introducing the expert opinion, the author signposts the counter argument. When you read the article, and if you haven't yet, please go and read it or you won't know what I'm talking about. Once the author introduces the study conducted by McGill University and other experts in the psychiatric department, I believe, this is where the author is now talking about excessive social media usage causing hypersocial behavior rather than antisocial behavior. So this is where the author actually starts to change her argument, right? So that's why I said that the author uses expert opinion as a way of signposting the counter argument. And this now, how does this help the author? It provides us, the reader, with clear direction as to where the argument is going. And here I link it back to contrast, because Again, it's contrast in the upper half that was talking about the old perspective versus now what the new perspective is, which is shown in the lower half, and this clearly shows the author's shift in perspective. So that's how I explained how organizational strategies were used in this particular article. Now, again, enjoy elevator music while I painstakingly type out the part where I speak about language techniques, because I'm way too stubborn to just copy and paste. Now, for the next paragraph, where I introduce the language techniques, and I hope you realize that I'm breaking these paragraphs, not because I'm really talking about like something very different, or I wouldn't say put question 1 in one paragraph, question 2, question 3 in another, like that. No. Use a better judgment and break the paragraphs as needed, right? Because what you don't want is a big block of text, because that becomes hard to read. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like, I don't know, I'm sure you've experienced this, where you see a big block of text and you can't read anything, literally can't read anything. So again, I did signposting. This time I used a transitional word, furthermore, and then I went on to signpost my argument. Furthermore, the author uses language techniques such as first person point of view and anecdotes. Again, this was just a stylistic choice, and for I did what I think would be best for my argument. Even though the question said an organizational strategy or language technique or a combination of both, I chose the combination of both. But when it says 2 organizational strategies or 2 language techniques, I'm comprehending that as if you speak about only 2 organizational strategies, then that's fine. Or if you speak about only 2 language techniques, that's also fine. Or if you speak about 1 organizational strategy and 1 language technique, that's also fine. But I went with 2 organizational strategies and 2 language techniques because, again, I felt like I needed one to explain the other, right? So here, me using anecdotes, and anecdotes are basically personal stories. I just said pelican stories. Personal stories, right? And first person point of view, telling the story from my perspective. So you're going to see a lot of I's, me's, and stuff like that. So I said that the text begins by talking about the author's own social media habits. That kind of peeved me, but we're not going to talk about that for way different reasons from let's not go there. Anyways, so the text begins by talking about the author's own social media habits. Moreover, the author uses personal pronouns such as I and me throughout the article. This makes the topic more relatable and elicits an emotional response from the readers. This is often used to further engage readers to experience the writing from the writer's perspective, as if they were their own words. So yeah, that's what I said. Nothing more to it. And that leads me to talk about the credibility of the article. And since the question said that you should comment on comment on the credibility of the information, it's a comment question, so you don't have to state at the end whether you believe that the article can be trusted or not. You just need to just literally say what you think about it, right? And I encourage, a lot of you usually don't really know what to write about when it comes to evaluating sources. I encourage that you use the CRAP framework. Test if your source is crap. I have a post on Instagram about it. I haven't made a video yet, but CRAP essentially stands for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, or accuracy then authority, whichever one you feel like, and purpose, right? You talk about those 5 things, and you should have a well developed evaluation, right? So again, enjoy elevator music while I do this for the aesthetic. Okay, so I'm back. I'm not going to write the conclusion yet, but I just wrote everything about what were we talking about? I wrote everything about credibility and the evaluation of the source, because I really went in on that one. In on it, and I had to break it up. As I said, I didn't want a whole block of text, so I had to break it up, right? So I started by, again, signposting. When considering the article's credibility, it is able to present the argument in a clear, coherent manner on a topic that is widely studied. That's me setting you up for telling you what's right with it, right? But the only part that's really signposting is when considering the article's credibility, right? So you now know that I'm going to start evaluating the sources, or evaluating the source, or sources, whatever, the information in the article. So I'm going to comment on the credibility of the information. Now, also, the information presented in the text is relevant to the main point and purpose of the article. So 2 brownie points for this, for C and R, currency and relevance, 2 points. Thus, the information presented in the article is current and relevant. Now we're going in, because a lot of things didn't sit well with me for this one, but yeah. However, the article falls short in terms of authority, accuracy, and purpose. So the 3 other things I told you to consider when you're trying to see if your source of information is crap. So Taylor Bennett does not hold an academic title such as doctor or PhD, therefore lacks authority to make judgments on psychological disorders such as antisocial behavior. Now, I feel like I sound a bit pretentious saying this, but to be honest, hear me out. Let me cook. How do I know that she does not have an academic title? You see, at the bottom of that paper, the paper, it actually gives you a short reference. It says extracted from Taylor Bennett, blah blah blah, 9th February 2018, and the hyperlink, or should I say URL, to the blog post, yeah? Now, if Taylor Bennett had been, a person with an academic title, they wouldn't leave it out in the reference, right? So since they don't have doctor or PhD in front of her name, I'm just thinking Taylor Bennett is an ordinary layman like me and you, or you and I. Yeah, so that's how I made that judgment. And since Taylor Bennett did not define antisocial behavior, I am guessing it's the psychological term antisocial behavior and not the loose term, when someone say behaving antisocial, right? I don't know which one of them she's talking about. So I am going to, since she's even referencing other psychiatric studies, I am going with the psychological definition. So in that case, if it's a if she's referencing the psychological disorder antisocial behavior, she has no authority, or let me not say no authority, she lacks the authority to speak on, make judgments as to whether someone will or will not have it, or does not have antisocial behavior. Furthermore, it was presented in a blog rather than a reputable journal, further dampening its credibility. This here is basically making contrasting which one would be better. Would it be like a popular source, for example a blog, or a scholarly source or academic source like a reputable journal? Now, whenever you're going for sources, you want to always go for a source over a popular source. When you're doing research, if you want to make that research have real good foundation, don't go for a popular source unless absolutely necessary. So to remedy this with a TH, Taylor could consider partnering with a doctor who specializes in psychiatry and create a collaborative article where both her name and the doctor's name is on it as like authors, rather than having this independent one. But Taylor got to make that bread on her blog, so I'm not fighting it. Moreover, in terms of accuracy, Bennett only references a single research paper that challenges the claim that excessive social media use excessive social media use results in antisocial behavior. So that's the claim, and the one paper that she finds challenging it is from the McGill University, right? And when she speaks further in the article, not in it meaning the article, when she speaks further on this particular study, she speaks about I think the man's name is Samuel. Wow. Yes, Samuel. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name. And his colleague Mariah Stendel, right? They are from the McGill University's Department of Psychiatry. So even when he is speaking about more evidence for this, he's referencing the same people who did that same study. So basically it's one source telling me that people who use social media excessively, they ain't doing the whole antisocial behavior thing, it's hypersocial. One source, which really narrows the perspective for such a bold claim, right? Really narrows the perspective. And so I don't know if I can trust this, because accuracy speaks about how cohesive the sources are. So are there other sources that speak about this claim or speak against this claim, right? So you want to offer balanced. We're going to get to purpose when we talk about balanced perspective in an argument, right? So here I have said that this provides a relatively narrow perspective for the probe, and thus could be improved by providing more evidence from other sources related to the same study or same topic. I don't know if I like how I said that, study or topic. I'm going to leave it as study. Finally, the article is of a highly persuasive nature. That was peeving me. Particularly the use of anecdotes polarizes communication, so it pushes you to think one-sidedly and leaves room for the reader to uncritically accept the writer's perspective. I also mentioned this in the use of hyperphora, where Bennett posed a question, why, and then immediately gave a response after, right? That again really drove the persuasive nature of the article, and if they asked me to speak about more language techniques, I would have. I just thought that wasn't my strongest point, so I didn't include it. But the question was why, and because I want to combat the negative effects that come with social media use. that was the answer to the question, right? So this frames the whole use of social media as having negative effects and blah blah blah, making you antisocial, blah blah blah. So it's really setting you up to think, is unilaterally the word? One-sidedly? Yeah. So that's why I said that the purpose here, this is a biased article. It's not presenting the argument in like having balanced perspectives, and thus the purpose is to persuade rather than to inform. In the conclusion, because a lot of you have been hounding me for a conclusion, so I'll write this essay here with a conclusion. Usually I just use the evaluation of sources part as my conclusion, but since you want me to wrap it up, I will. So enjoy elevator music while I type this out. Okay, I am back. I waffled a bit, but I am back. So, in conclusion, the conclusion wraps up your argument, right? It restates your thesis, meaning the main argument of your entire writing. It restates the major points and gives an overall concluding statement. This here, I said, in conclusion, the article attempts to persuade the readers that the new belief that excessive social media use results in hypersocial behavior rather than the traditional perspective that it results in antisocial behavior. That was a mouthful. That sentence was really long, and yeah. The writer achieves this by using organizational strategies such as comparison and contrast and expert opinion. So I kind of contrast the extremely long sentence to begin with a shorter one, right? And I keep those arguments broken, like keep them short after that, because as I said, the first sentence was really long. The writer also uses language techniques such as first-person POV and anecdotal evidence. I must draw your attention to this, the POV here. I did it for word count purposes, and what you want to do is here, even though I've used POV, it is allowed, but what you don't want to do is whenever you're using it for the first time in your writing, write it out. But if you use it again later in your text, then you can use abbreviations. Never use an abbreviation for the first time in your text, right? Always write it out first, and then later in your text, if you need to use the same phrase or term again, then you can abbreviate it as, here you can see POV. And anecdotal evidence. Overall, though the topic is timeless and the information is relevant, the article lacks authority and falls short in accuracy and purpose. Oof. Every writer's dream to hear about their writing like this. Anyways, no, that was a module 1 essay. And yeah, I have nothing else to say. Only thing is, again, if you want the notes, if you need the notes and a copy of the essay, it's linked in the description down below. So until next time, bye guys.